There's that funky slide guitar music that comes in every Monday through Friday, live at 5 in the Evil FB Network. YouTube, check us out, subscribe. Type in iNewsWire Roy Blecker. You'll see my nice, smiling, shining face on this faster than you Friday. It doesn't get any faster than the 65th running of the famed Knoxville Nationals. We'll have a preview and what happened to the prelims last night. Looks like Javier Baccaria is slipping a little bit in California. We can only hope and pray. That's probably what it's going to take. That slide keeps continuing. On top of that, we'll have the latest in the California governor's race and elections. And Trump and the federal government are putting to good use the $4 billion that Obama and Biden wanted to throw down the stupid train here in California and putting it to good use. We'll have a report on that. You know, good news coming for good guys with a gun in Southern California. Maybe get into the more of the people are pissed at these flock cameras. But as we showed you, the lead picture coming in of the day, Sammy Swindell, who's making his 50th appearance at the famed Knoxville Nationals. Obviously 76, he won the event, his first win in 1978, when there were no wings and you were properly called sprint cars instead of super modifieds at the time. I forgot to run in the highlights yesterday. He had kind of an auspicious starting to his 50th Knoxville Nationals. Here we go.
And now Sammy challenged on the outside by Linton Jeffrey. They get together out of turn number 2, and Sammy is flipping wildly down the back straightaway.
Yeah, that broke my heart there.
Yes, I bet it did break his heart. Fortunately, he didn't break any bones or anything in that storied collision flip down the front straightaway at what, he's almost 70 years old, I think. Taking a tumble like that and being able to climb out of the car, well, one says how tough Sammy Swindell was and still is, and to the testament of all, you know, how much safer sprint cars and all of racing is today. So we're glad Sammy walked out. We'll see if he comes back in the Alphabet Soups Saturday, or if he runs tonight in the World Outlaw prelims. But it was an auspicious start for Sammy Swindell in his 50th appearance at the Knoxville Nationals. 2 Thursdays, preliminary night 2 qualifier. Let's see what goes here.
Top of turn number 2 there as he settles himself into the second spot. McCarl staying right there within striking distance in third. Brian Brown into fourth. Oh, car spinning, 2 cars together in turn number 4.
That was a pretty good crunch. That last one, right in. Again, it's a testament to everybody, sometimes you just wheel the cars in and roll them again. Before that had been lights out there. They probably had ambulances out there hauling people off back in the day. As we say, here's another look at that.
Dirt Vision replay coming up as we understand all drivers are okay. You can see Caleb Johnson's car sideways there.
Now watch the shot he takes here.
That was
Pretty
a
good
hard
shot
hit.
right there in the left rear.
That was a hard hit, that second one coming in. Because they said all the drivers walked away from that one. Here's more. Prelim night 2, the Knoxville Nationals. You.
Third spot, Buddy.
Oh, red flag, upside down.
Tasker Phillips.
That was another nasty.
Car got over the cushion, it sucked the front end into the wall, and then that front end just dug in and sent him tumbling end over end. Got some airtime there. A pretty rough ride for Tasker Phillips.
Yes, it was. That was definitely a rough ride for Tasker Phillips in the main event in preliminary night 2. Here's more of the action. As we say, here we go.
Toyota qualifying night at the Knoxville Nationals will go to Kyle Larson. And the VP fuels checkered flag as Kyle Larson climbs up top.
So Kyle Larson is top point getter for the 2 nights. He's on the pole. Although, unless it rains and they come back on Sunday, he won't make it because he's in Richmond with the Cup guys in his Hendrick ride, which takes precedence over that. Be interesting to see if they put somebody else in the car since they're on the pole, and I imagine if they put somebody else in, they'll have to start at the back. So we shall see. Another thing, Kyle Larson runs 500 miles or 600 miles at Charlotte, gets out of the NASCAR car and looks like he's getting up off the couch after winning, getting up off the couch after watching the race. It's really kind of interesting. And I did this with Tony Stewart. He'd won like at Dover somewhere in the Cup race. He gets out and he's doing the interview like this and was 25 lap sprint car race and he's out of breath. Here's Kyle Larson after last night's victory. Here we go.
They're low into 1 here to slide him and just get going back on the top. I think I had gotten inside of him or by him there when the caution came out. I don't know what it was for, but yeah, and I think that just had him thinking on where to.
Did you see like 3 or 4 times he had to stop, catch his breath? After a minute after winning, I believe his 25 lap preliminary feature, he's out of breath and can hardly talk. Gets out of a Cup car after 500 miles, and it's like, hey, can you pass me another beer? Feature lineup, top 16 are locked in. Kyle Larson, you see on the pole. Sheldon Hodenschild on the outside. McFadden, Casey Kane, Buddy Kofoid, Justin Henderson, the law firm of Parker Price Miller, Darren Pittman, Chase Dietz, David Gravel, Rico Abreu, Logan Schuart, Garrett Williams, Cole Macedo, Corey Day, and Brian Brown all locked in. See, there'll be 8 more spots on tap when they go through the preliminary features. Tonight they'll have the World of Outlaws show. I think that's a separate deal on that, but that will be the night before the $200,000 to win $1 million purse. Greatest, biggest, most prestigious sprint car race in the world will go off Saturday night at the famed Knoxville Speedway. I don't know why this thing keeps giving me that. Here's your nostalgia picture of the day. On the high banks, believe that's Salem, could be Winchester, Indiana. But man, those 2 tracks definitely separated the men from the boys. That was almost 50 years ago. Speaking of the aforementioned Richmond, this was back about 50 years ago. The big fiery crash that was out there at the old half-mile Richmond Fairgrounds, where Kyle Larson will be racing most definitely Saturday night. Well, unless maybe it'll rain at Richmond and they'll cancel that out and you'll get to go to Knoxville. Who knows? It could work in reverse. But that was back there. That was another shot from 50 years ago. Probably 56 years ago. Believe it or not, this is by the 10 and 60 freeway. At the time in 1970, there were building the Ontario Motor Speedway. And if you don't doubt that it was surrounded by grape fields, there's the picture. And you see up on the top, and you see Milliken Avenue, and we're Ontario Mills Mall at the east end of the Speedway. But you see it's all green patches. There's no buildings or anything around that. That's 56 years ago. The Ontario Motor Speedway was definitely out in the middle of nowhere. And look at the thriving metropolis, good, bad, or indifferent. However you want to say it. We'll get to the good news for good guys with a gun in SoCal. Latest polling, the California governor's race. Everybody's telling the government to flock off. And much, much more on today's show. One of the bright spots that we have endured here in the last couple of days, good guys with a gun in Southern California got very good news. Thanks to the Trump administration and them appointing Bill Asaley, United States Attorney, out here basically in the SoCal area. He says, posts on the X machine, this is a significant victory for our office and the Second Amendment. Los Angeles Eyewitness News, the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department agreed to a settlement with the U.S. Department of Justice today and will speed up licensing for eligible Californians who wish to carry concealed handguns in public for self-defense. We could not get, well, I don't know how we could get better news than that. Here's the ABC 7 report. They give less than 30 seconds to this.
The Department of Justice and the LA County Sheriff's Department have agreed to settle a lawsuit that claimed the department caused unreasonable delays for people applying for permits to carry concealed weapons. The DOJ claimed it was a violation of the Second Amendment. The Sheriff's Department says it's worked hard to reduce its backlog of concealed carry permit applications.
So, rightly, Bill Asaley comes in and says, hey, Looney Tune Sheriff of Los Angeles, knock off holding off on the CCWs for law-abiding citizens. Well, they hemmed and hawed and hooed and hayed and made all sorts of excuses. You know, Karen Bass might box my ears in if I do this. Bill Asaley said you're going to do it anyway. They finally had and negotiated, as you heard, a settlement that allows them not to slow walk your CCW in Los Angeles County. Finish up on the extremely less than a commercial sized. This is less than a 30-second spot that you would get in a commercial on this very important issue from KABC 7.
Carry permit applications. The Justice Department calls the settlement a huge win for LA County residents and the Second Amendment.
He could be a little more enthusiastic about that. Should be, that's a humongous win for the people of Los Angeles County. That their government will not be suppressing their right to keep and bear arms. Can we dedicate more than 25 seconds to that, ABC? Very important, extremely, humongously important issue. Big victory! Reversal in LA County. You know why they agreed to that? You know why Looney Tunes and the Sheriff Department and legal agreed to this? Because they were going to lose in court. Because ultimately this would have been a Supreme Court decision. And there's a 98.7% plus chance they'd have got their ass handed to them in LA County. And they would have probably suffered fines and sanctions and who knows what. But it just shows the depth. It shows what? Elections. Elections matter. And no matter how, even if the center right or MAGA types voted for Trump have disagreements on issues, which I do, this would not have come about if guarantee if Kamala Harris was president, we wouldn't be talking about this. They'd be knocking on your door. We're here to collect all weapons, ammunition, guns, knives, brass knuckles. What do you got? And we're going to search every frickin' square inch of your home. And if you don't open this door in about less than 3 seconds, we're just going to get the battle blaster out and mow it down and come in. So, special thanks to Trump, Bill O'Reilly, for pushing the issue, not giving up, not backing down. Very good news for those in SoCal. We went through Ibakaru with his power hour. Oh, we're going to give you free electricity during the day because we're trying to get rid of it because the solar panel nonsense is about ready to burn up the grid in California. Not to mind it was a stupid plan because the people they're offering electricity at no charge are busting their ass just trying to survive. If you don't think this is a problem, and this all started, especially in SoCal when they closed down San Onofre, the nuclear power plant, down there in OC, on the ocean. It was mainly LA Department of Water Power, SoCal Edison, San Diego Gas and Electric, and Riverside Public Utilities were the ones that owned the plant. That's why Riverside for decades, was from 70 till about 5 or 10 years ago, whenever they closed it down, could offer cheaper electricity to businesses, residents, and everything else because they owned about, I think, 10% of the San Onofre nuclear power plant. Cheapest, most environmentally friendly, 24/7, 365 reliable power. Once they got that, they were in trouble. The kid, Councilmember Phil Falcone, his quote in the Press Enterprise, "We really struggle. We really struggle to meet our electricity demand now." Councilmember Phil Falcone said, in justifying a potential moratorium, Mr. Falcone, everyone on the Riverside City Council, everyone in California, would you get your head out of your ass? We should be building nuclear electricity generating plants from San Diego to Eureka, if we would have started, when we started this, under Pat Brown, Democrat, that's when San Onofre and Diablo, the one that's still running up north, were proposed and set in motion under Pat Brown and completed under Ronald Reagan's governorship of California. So it was bipartisan. Cheap electricity. If we were getting right now, which I would say 40 to 50% of our electricity demand in California from nuclear power, easily, without even a question, your electric bill would be cut in half. And even furthermore, because we would be selling electricity to Arizona and Nevada and Utah. Instead of paying them to take the power off these stupid solar generators that are trying to burn the grid up at 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, when electricity demand is not that high, definitely not even close to its peak, but you're at the peak solar power, and it's sending all this electricity down the line that cannot handle it. Which is going, if you continue that, it's going to burn up the transformer switching stations wires, whether they be underground or overhead. This is the idiocracy we're living on now. And then you have Falcone with these idiotic decisions that we're going to do this or that or moratorium on that. Instead, of doing something that would actually 100% be a benefit to everyone. But no, we got to do stupid. I tell you, sometimes. And they built stupidity in California, and now they're exporting it to the other 49 states and the world. Hopefully not. Like in yesterday, but not in the far too distant future. Again, Californians, Americans, and the world will get their proverbial head out of their rear end. And we will actually work for the people. And it's about time. Switching gears a little bit. And another great stroke by the Trump administration, that $4 billion that the feds withheld from the stupid train, from burning it. $2 billion of it is going to actually maintain upgrades for other trains that are actually running, that have engines and track and can haul freight and goods. Sean Duffy, our transportation secretary, posted this on the X machine.
$1 billion $2 billion of these dollars actually are coming from an investment that the last administration made in high-speed rail in California. Now, I want to see America have high-speed rail. I want us to invest in high-speed rail. Europe has it, Asia has it, America should have it. But the California project was never going to be built. The original projection was that this project was going to cost $33 billion. Well, the current projections are that it's going to cost over $230 billion. $200 billion over budget. Over a decade, not one rail track has been laid. And so we pulled that money back, and now we're able to redeploy it into great projects that will drive safety, innovation, and a better experience for the American people.
And I agree with Sean Duffy. You know, at some point, we probably should have been putting in a lot of high-speed rail. Actually, the the concept of LA to San Francisco with the bullet train was actually, if it was going to come, if it had a chance to come to fruition, as it was a straight shot, actually made some sense. But the way that now it's going from LA up the Cajon Pass, into Bakersfield, up to Merced Fresno, then across, it's going to take you over 8 hours to get from LA to San Francisco, if you're lucky, and you can drive your car from LA to San Francisco in that time. And probably for less money than they're going to have to charge you to do it. So at least the money's getting appropriated to actual projects that will actually do the people good. What a concept. Instead of, let's just burn it all down. I don't know how much more El Stupido we can take. And I hope we don't have to find out. But we're aiming, I guess.
Now the champion will get...
I guess we're going to get a dose, and hopefully we won't endure that. On top of that, on top of the Knoxville Nashvilles, the Topless 100's going on at Batesville, Arkansas. Here's a little preview of it. On Flow. Hopefully here
yesterday before they headed down here for the first time, but hope everybody enjoyed last weekend. Always fun here to come to Batesville, Arkansas. We will be off for next weekend, and then we will be at Port Royal, Pennsylvania. Here's the upcoming schedule. Thank you very much, Tiffany.
There you see, getting ready for the Topless 100 in Batesville, Arkansas. For the late model fans, they're not getting excluded on this big racing weekend. See all the fun stuff that you catch on this show that you will not catch anywhere else. And especially in the inevitable style that we bring it to you. And especially on Faster Than You Friday. And we try to lighten it up a tad on Friday to get you pumped up and ready for that. And just in case you think Sammy Swindell will not be racing tonight at the Knoxville Nationals after that horrendous flip on the preliminary night Wednesday, he's ready to rock and roll. He's going to be getting after it tonight. It's race day. If there's a race, and Sammy Swindell and many others' heart is still beating, they're there. So good luck to Sammy at the Knoxville Nationals tonight. All those at the the Batesville 100, the Topless 100.
30 seconds, Roy.
And we'll see. As Sean said, we'll be joining the Mighty Met KMT here in less than 30 seconds. We'll get into the whole people are pissed about the flock off. They're repeating that all over the place. We'll get to the latest polling results in the California governor's race.
Here we go, 10 seconds.
As we said, hillbilly hoedown around.
IE Newswire Daily is on the air.
The following is a paid program. Views and claims expressed are those of the program producer and are not endorsed by this station. Opinions expressed are not necessarily those of radio station KMET, its management, employees, or affiliates.
There's that funky slide guitar music that comes on every Monday through Friday live at 5:30 on the Mighty Met 1490 AM, broadcasting all over the Inland Empire and the aforementioned AM band. Join our vast video audience in the Evil Bean Network. YouTube, check us out, subscribe, type an IE Newswire, Roy Blecker. You'll see my nice, smiling, shining face on this faster than you Friday. We did the prelim report on night 2 of the famed Knoxville Nationals, the Topless 100 at Batesville, Arkansas, with the Lucas Oil Dirt late models and all the racing action, flips, frivolity, and fans all over the place. Sammy Swindell coming back after that nasty flip on Wednesday night at Knoxville. The 70-year-old 50th Knoxville Nationals is going to be there and ready to rock and roll tonight as they flag him off, as you see here. Maybe he'll wear the tuxedo while he's doing that. You know, Ed Hell used to do that. He was sponsored by a tuxedo company down there at El Cajon in San Diego. He raced in a tuxedo almost all season of that. But we'll see if Sammy climbs in his 900 horsepower World of Outlaws sprint car with a tuxedo. However he does, I'm sure, as he has for 50 years at Knoxville, represent himself very well. Good luck tonight and tomorrow night for all those. $200,000 to win $1 million purse up tomorrow night in Knoxville, Iowa, in the greatest sprint car race left in the entire world. Good news for good guys with a gun. Bill O'Saley, the Trump administration, has negotiated with Looney Tunes, the sheriff in LA County, and they said no more slow walking of CCW, concealed carry weapons permits, in LA County. That is a huge victory for freedom-loving types, not only here in SoCal, but around the world. In the absolutely idiotic world of Los Angeles County, where they've been slow-walking CCW permits, tens, if maybe 100 are issued a year in 10 million people. Absolutely ridiculous. Well, that will be no more as, again, Trump, Bill O'Saley have settled with LA. They're now not going to slow walk it. Now, I'm sure it will be a battle to enforce that, but as long as O'Saley and Trump are running the federal government and the Department of Justice, at least we have a fighting chance. And for all you in the other 49 states that think it's not going to happen to you, they're test piloting here. We're fighting back. And I hope more will fight with us. Because if not, it will be coming to a town and a city near you. Just wanted to touch on this. Anna Paulina Luna, the congresswoman, has pointed out more of allegations of hey, they're using your tax money to fund these DSA communist candidates they've been going through all that just because they've got somewhat of a handle on USAID. That was just a very small portion of it. And this is where the Trump administration nationally and Todd Blanche and all that, they need to crack down on Act Blue. That is the main source that they've been laundering the money through to these candidates, as Anna Paulina Luna alleges, and we've run the evidence up the kazoo that suggests all this. They point a gun at you, take your money in the form of taxes, and then they use this scam of businesses, parties, like the little old lady James O'Keefe walks up to in her hovel in the middle of the holler, says, did you give Kamala Harris $100 gazillion? And she's looking at him like, are you crazy? Do you understand where you're at? I've never seen that kind of money, much less give it to a political candidate. I may have given somebody $10 once to run for city council or something. The fraud is rampant. We are lucky if we have, under Trump 2.0, if we've gotten to 1.3% of it, 98.7% of it is still out there. Whether it's vagrants, the hospice deal, this election fraud, and on bullet trains and on and on. It's there, it's real. We need definitely to get after it. One of my big political, two of my big political scenes out here, of course, nationally, yes on 43, the SAVE Prop 13 Act, and for those of you Moreno Valley, most of the north side of the 60 freeway, please elect Joanne Martinez Stephan to the City Council. I ask nicely, please vote for Joanne Martinez Stephan for City Council, yes on 43. I'm asking nicely again. Don't get me upset, because then I start saying things I probably shouldn't on the radio. So, I'm starting off this campaign season nicely. So I'm asking you to oblige. We'll get yes on 43, yes on 39, the Voter ID Act, yes in 2nd District, Moreno Valley, and we'll get into all the other candidates. Michael Gates for Attorney General, Herb on effing California for Controller, Gloria Romero for Lieutenant Governor, Steve Hilton for Governor, and all those positions locally. We've got a lot of that going on, like in our local races. We'll get into the school boards and city councils and water boards. Just met Miss Longville. She's running for Western District out here, which does roll into Moreno Valley a little bit. Talked to her today in my travels around. So we'll be getting to all the races locally here. As now's the time the campaign, well, by September it's really going to start heating up. So we'll get into all those. We'll get into more in depth, especially. And hopefully more people will pay attention to their local races. On to the California governor's race. This is an ABC 7 report. on the latest polling numbers on that vignette. Hopefully, here we go.
Election, among other things, voters are going to pick a new California governor.
Democrat Javier Becerra is running against Steve Hilton. And for more on where the race stands right now, we're joined by Eyewitness News political reporter Josh Haskell. Josh.
Yeah, Giovanna, the November election is coming up fast. Early voting starts in October, and one of the candidates in the governor's race appears to be in a very comfortable spot. Early voting is less than 2 months away in the California governor's race, and Democrat Javier Becerra has a commanding lead over Republican Steve Hilton, according to the latest poll. The UC Berkeley IGS LA Times poll has Becerra at 55%, Hilton at 37%.
So let's stop there for a little bit. The PPIC poll that came out last week had it 61-36, 61 Baccaria, 36 Hilton. Now, of course, it could be, obviously it's a different pollster, but Baccaria's went down 6 points. Steve Hilton's come up 1. What's interesting about this is the undecideds, and in this poll are more, in the PPIC poll, there are almost in 0 undecideds, which was kind of odd. Even 7% is very low at this particular point. But to see Baccaria below 60%, now again, and we went through it with Susan Shelley yesterday, of that, we'll get into the numbers and where they have to be pretty much if, by some sort of miracle, Steve Hilton were to win the governor's race. Here's more from the ABC 7 report.
Percent, with 7% of voters still undecided.
At this point, the race looks to be entirely predictable. Most of the voters are breaking down along party lines. Democrats and left-leaning independents are voting for Becerra. Republicans and right-leaning independents are voting for Hilton.
Hilton has been campaigning,
which is pretty close. I mean, 60-40. The concerning part is we are losing as people move out. We get to that where we're not. Used to be we're 41%. Now we're getting down to that 36. I think only 37% voted in the primary for Chad and Steve. And that's pretty much reflected in 2 polls now. So you really don't see a lot of shifting. If anything, the Democrat left side is ticking down slightly. I don't want to try to blow this. Some I've heard, Baccaria's lost from the last poll. Well, that could just be, they're both within the margin of error. If you take that up or down, they could still be correct. So it's a slight downtick for Baccaria. That's some good news. The concerning news is Steve Hilton's not climbing. If Baccaria would have went down 7 and Steve would have jumped up 5 from the PPIC poll, then you could start seeing a trend. But see what's more on the ABC 7 report.
All over California following the June primary, but Becerra has kept a lower profile, fundraising and working to unite the Democratic Party behind his campaign. In a statement, Becerra's campaign said today's poll is further confirmation that California voters support Secretary Becerra's focus on lowering the cost of living for California's working families and standing up against the hateful and disastrous policies pushed by Trump and his endorsed candidate.
The only thing they got is Trump. We hate Trump. And California's probably the biggest we hate Trump state. And this is the thing. They need to run a Joe Biden campaign on steroids. They better keep, if Steve, Hilton's got a chance. If he's got a 1 or 2% or whatever it is chance of winning this race, it's going to be if they let Baccaria out of the basement. If they don't keep him in solitary confinement. They should be keeping him locked up, feeding him a bowl of gruel from now till November 5th or 3rd or whatever the election date is. Even after that, because we know we have this extended election date in California. So, but no, they've got to do a Joe Biden in 2020. Just lock him in the basement. Don't say nothing. Trump is evil. And it would be a miracle if Steve Hilton wins. The only way Steve's got a chance is if they let Baccaria out of solitary confinement, let him out of the basement, and he opens his mouth like the Power Hour on electricity. Or I'm for the bullet train. So we shall see how the campaign shakes out here. Let's finish up with the ABC 7 report.
Candidate Steve Hilton. We reached out to Hilton's campaign for reaction to the poll, but did not hear back.
So Hilton has actually made more efforts than many recent candidates for California governor to talk about how he's different from the National Party. But at the core, he does have an R after his name, and at his core, he does have Trump's endorsement. And in a deep blue state like California, barring extraordinary circumstances, those may be hurdles too big to overcome.
Can't disagree with Schneer's analysis on that. But I will say, and Meg Whitman, Kashkari, Dolly, Cox, the candidates on the R side since Arnold Kennedy have been absolutely disastrous. They couldn't put two sentences together. They were dull. In fact, they looked retarded most of the time. Meg Whitman, as Tom McClintock said, in 2010, it was easy to define that Jerry Brown was going to win because he was the most conservative candidate between Meg Whitman and Jerry Brown. And that says way more volumes about Meg Whitman. But at least Steve is articulate, personable, can put two words together or more in a sentence and make it sound coherent. Again, I'm not changing my mind. Steve's got like a 2% chance of winning, like Schneer says, if something extraordinary happens. I don't even think if he gets indicted on this whole McCluskey, Dana the Hammer, $250,000 out of his campaign, went to pay, even if he gets indicted on that, I think that would backfire. I think he would get more support, kind of like Trump did when they arrested him in the Mar-a-Lago deal. And I don't think that I have not really heard that he's got any sort of scandalous, there's no Eric Swalwell situation going on here, or something like that's going to crop up with Baccaria. I mean, the only thing is if people just flat get fed up and say, hey, we're going to roll the dice in California even though, and we're going to try something else. We're not going to practice the definition of insanity. We're tired of all the high electricity prices, the gas prices, the traffic, the vagrants, and insane home prices, and yada, yada, yada. That could possibly happen. In the lawyers can ruin just about anything department. Got a report on the closure of the big coaster at Six Flags. Here we go.
Hence, roller coasters in the world has been shut down at Six Flags Magic Mountain for over a month after an incident involving a rider. And this isn't the first time the terrifying X2 roller coaster has raised serious safety concerns.
A family is suing Six Flags after their 22-year-old son died after riding X2 4 years ago. KTLA's Jean Kang is live outside of the park in Valencia.
4 years ago. And unfortunately, accidents or whatever, or, life is not 100% perfect. 4 years they've ran it, and no other deaths that I don't think there's been. How many injuries or whatever is this dangerous? That right off the get-go. 4 years after the unfortunate passing, however, accident, whatever, happened 4 years ago. If you ride a roller coaster, almost you're not going to get hurt or injured or killed. Every once in a while it happens.
With more. Hi, Jean.
Hi, Lauren and Lindsay. As you see, X2 here at Six Flags is shut down. It is empty tonight. Look at this as we start to zoom in. We are just outside of the park taking a look at this ride. And as you mentioned, it is very intense. Today, a judge heard arguments in a lawsuit regarding Christopher Hawley, who died after riding this same coaster.
I'd have to go back and look in that, but did he drop the L off of Flags? Kind of sounded like that to me, but hey, I make enough errors on the speaking part or mispronouncing words and stuff like that. I'm not, everybody does it, so, but kind of sounded like he might have lost the L off the Flags part, but here we go.
He had a heart of gold.
Christopher Hawley's mother and brother spoke out. He was 22 when he died in June 2022, a day after riding X2. Today, a judge heard arguments over sanctions against Six Flags for allegedly delaying evidence in his family's lawsuit.
He had just graduated from San Diego State University like 3 weeks prior, and he was ready to experience all that he had worked so hard for.
Court files say the coaster jolted to a violent stop. Hawley walked off holding the rail, then suddenly collapsed.
When we went on the X2, we had no idea that was going to be the last time that we would see Christopher.
Christopher died the next day. The coroner says the cause of death was head trauma from a park ride accident. The family is suing Six Flags Magic Mountain.
There have been a lot of hearings throughout this process, and I just look at it that we're getting closer.
And if Six Flags was holding evidence, and that's to be determined in court, and if Six Flags is doing that, they should suffer the consequences of that. What does that have to do with why is the ride being shut down?
The family's attorney points to a 2021 case where a San Bernardino woman claimed X2 left her with a concussion and nerve damage. A judge later dismissed Magic Mountain from that case. Six Flags denies the claim in the Hawley lawsuit. Separately, X2 closed after a July 5th incident involving a report of an unconscious person. Cal OSHA has an inspection open, and a park spokesperson says only that the ride remains closed at this time.
Justice will be holding the people accountable that could have prevented this and did not prevent this.
And if that's the case, if that is a legitimate reason, I would say, if they're 4 years later somebody's unconscious, there could be some sort of problem with it. But they went 4 years from that. And again, that's a very challenging, fast, up and down. There's going to be I don't see how, if you want the thrill ride of going through that, how you're going to be able to minimize this risk. This would be like saying, Okay, you crash your sprint car that, like Sammy Swindell says, say he had a severe injury, you sign all kinds of releases saying you take responsibility for yourself. Racing is a dangerous sport. You could be maimed or killed doing that. We all who've done it understand that. And we accept that risk. There is a amount of risk you're assuming, in my mind, when you climb on a roller coaster like that. Now, could they have prevented that? And, the case in court, the last one got dismissed. Maybe Magic Mountain or Six Flags found something. But, again, you can't take, if you eliminate all the risk out of living, you're going to eliminate the living out of living. It's just impossible to do. And, maybe if you're just tilted the right way or a certain build, you might hit your head on something or whatever. It's just like race car crashes or anything else. Some of them you look at and like, holy, swear to on a stack of Bibles, that guy's deader than a doornail. He walks out of it. Watch another crash, it doesn't look that bad, and the guy is deader than a doornail. You can never tell, you're not going to be able to make and this is what we've tried to do, that 100% no-risk society. It ain't there. But, again, sympathies to that family who lost their son and brother and everything. It's got to be a sad thing, and we're not diminishing that. But the flip side of that is life is a risk. And sometimes you draw the unlucky lottery ticket. Get out and do something fun this weekend, especially it's cooling down from the heat wave, or somewhat of a heat wave that I don't believe was as much of a heat wave as we've documented on the show, but get out and do something fun. Sprint cars, stock cars will be at Paris Auto Speedway this weekend. Of course, lots of racing on that, lots of activities, the beach, the mountains, Six Flags or whatever, Knott's Berry Farm. Just have a beer on the front porch with your neighbor on Saturday night. But do something. Unwind, relax. Because as they say, Monday will be here way too soon. That'll do it for this week. As we usually say at this time, mandatory that you're back here in 71 Hours Why to hear the best darn show in the whole wide world. Until then, see ya!
The preceding was a paid program. Views and
All right, Roy. Take it easy. Have a good weekend.
You got it. We'll see you on Monday. God damn. Ah! Oh, holy Moses. Ah.